Well, thank you very much for that introduction, and welcome everyone. Good afternoon, or maybe even good morning, depending on what time zone you're in. My name is Jenny Yu, and on behalf of the Government of Canada, I welcome you to the Finding Opportunities and Supplying Goods and Services to the Government of Canada during COVID-19 seminar or presentation. First of all, I'd like to start off by congratulating and thanking the LGBT plus Chamber of Commerce, CGLCC, and congratulations on a successful event, and specifically this year for the tremendous effort and how they pivoted to now deliver the 2020 Digital Summit in this form. Still a multi-day, still with great content and different types of platforms that you can join and get great information in. As I mentioned today, my name is Jenny Yu, and I am from the Government of Canada, specifically from the Office of Small and Medium Enterprises, which is part of the Department of Public Services and Procurement Canada. In today's presentation, what you can expect is that the webinar length will be about 30 minutes total, and all participants, as you can see right now, have joined this room, if you will, presentation hall, muted by default. However, we do encourage a lot of engagement. What you can do is, if you have any questions or comments at all during the session, feel free to use the chat feature set up here on this platform. And I want to thank ahead of time our support team at the CGLCC team for helping me navigate that function. Also, I'd like to remind everyone that there's going to be a lot of information shared today. If you're a note taker, or even if you're not, there will be post-session notes shared with you today. Feel free to email CGLCC and the respective contacts for the post-session notes that we will be sharing after this information seminar. All right. So without further ado, we want to let you know that if you're participating in today's 30-minute seminar, we hope to use this time to help you gain more understanding in the federal procurement process. And I'll also be speaking a little bit about the national security exception, which has recently been invoked for any related procurement or purchases that has to do in Canada with Canada's response to COVID-19. We'll also do a brief demonstration on how to find opportunities on BuySellGCA, and hopefully provide you some additional and very useful sources of information for you guys as you're interested in selling to the federal government. All right. So as I mentioned, this seminar is actually developed and being presented by the Office of Small and Medium Enterprises. You'll often hear me refer to it as AHSME for short. AHSME was created as part of the PSPC, which is Public Services and Procurement Canada, department to support small and medium enterprises in the federal procurement process. AHSME, or our role, is to engage with SMEs and entrepreneurs to assist you and inform you on how to sell to the Government of Canada your goods and services, and to work to reduce procurement barriers in an effort to ensure fairness in the process. At the end of the day, we strongly believe that if we're able to educate you on how to navigate the federal procurement process, then you will consider being a direct vendor to the government, which directly helps us diversify our supplier base. And in doing so, we're able to open it up to greater solutions that are available to us, help us attain better value, and at the end of the day, ultimately be better stewards of tax dollars. And how do we do this? We do this by listening to your concerns, answering questions, helping you understand, as I mentioned to you before, the procurement process, and hopefully helping you identify opportunities and essentially leveraging the information to see where you fit in the whole supply chain of things. All right, now contracting with the Government of Canada. Public Services and Procurement Canada, PSPC for short, as I mentioned, is the main procurement arm of the federal government. So the Government of Canada believes that competition in the buying process brings value for money to Canadians. And more than anything, it is very important that all government procurement activities are conducted in an open, fair, and transparent manner, and that all suppliers have an equal and fair chance at doing business with the government. So you'll rest assured that the way that we go about buying things, if you will, has to abide by federal laws, regulations, as well as Treasury Board of Canada policies, and that guides the Government of Canada's procurement process in order to ensure sound financial management of public money. So if anyone was wondering, if anyone with the delegated authority in departments and agencies, can they just call up their uncle if they know that we need a certain product or service, and we know that our uncle provides provides that. Can we go about doing that? No, we cannot. There are measures in place that make sure that we keep the procurement process open, fair, and transparent. All right, so we mentioned to you that in this session, we would like to offer you some tips and tricks on how to navigate the federal procurement process and finding opportunities. One of the biggest takeaways that I would like to emphasize from this presentation is that in order for you to make the Government of Canada know, one, of your company's existence, and two, your company's capabilities, one of the first things I would suggest for you to do is to register in our supplier registration information system. And in order to do so, I will go about it in our demonstration, but in order to do so, you will want to ensure that you have ready a couple of pieces of information. So your Canada Revenue Agency business number, you want to have that handy, and you also want to make sure that you have accurately the legal name of which your business is registered under, because those two key pieces of information is what you need in order to register to do business with the Government of Canada. And the registration process, I'll go through it a little bit when I do the demonstration, but just as a reminder, I'll preface that it will be a two-step process, inclusive of validation. So just like when you open any other sorts of accounts, you'll be sent an email, and then through that email, you will validate and then go in and create and optimize your profile. All right, so everything that I've mentioned so far has to do with Government of Canada procuring goods and services. So most often contracts are awarded through a competitive process. But then, of course, inevitably, there will also be some times where it will be in a non-competitive environment or in an environment where limited tendering happens. So you may have noticed on that note that lately, around mid-March to be precise, you would have seen a call out to suppliers posted on the government tendering site, BuySellGCA in March, asking suppliers to help combat COVID-19 or help support Canada's response in COVID-19 by indicating your company's supply capabilities. And some of you may have already even responded to the call and may even have received a call from our procurement team, and as we go through the plus 33,000 submissions that we've received. So on that note, you may have also noticed that there may have been some contracts awarded and it wasn't done so through a competitive process. Well, that brings me to the next point and how I can explain if we are not doing certain tenders or procuring products and services through a competitive process, when are we able to do it in a non-competitive or limited tendering time? There are several instances of which it can be justified under the Canadian contract regulations, and those are inclusive of when it's a pressing emergency, when it's low dollar value, for example, if the purchase does not exceed $25,000 when it has to do with goods, or $40,000 when it has to do with services, or when the procurement or the transaction itself is not of public interest, or in the case of sole source, where only one known supplier is believed to be able to meet the minimum mandatories of that. Rest assured that regardless to whether we go through a competitive process or a non-competitive process, the resulting contract award, so the evaluation criteria or the basis of selection, has to be strongly justified. Again, not calling up an uncle and just giving them the contract. All right. Next year, I'd like to mention that, as I was mentioning about, instances where limited tendering or non-competitive process is engaged, is right now during the pandemic. So there's something called a national security exception that has been recently invoked for procurement conducted by Public Services and Procurement Canada, or the Government of Canada, if you will. And what this means is that when the national security exception is invoked, it means that trade agreements don't apply to those procurements for the acquisition, purchase of goods and services required in order for Canada to respond to COVID-19 pandemic, meaning that these purchases can be sourced through limited tendering if justified. So if the contract is for goods and services that the Government of Canada needs to respond to COVID-19 pandemic, and it is covered by the NSC invocation, then we are able to proceed as fits. Now, some of you may also wonder, okay, well, for any procurement related to COVID-19, then you have the freedom to invoke the national security exceptions, but when does that end and when does that usually happen? Well, the NSC invocation period lasts until WHO, so the World Health Organization, no longer declares COVID-19 as a pandemic or a threat to public health or considered a public health emergency. Just so you know, as much as we're mentioning national security exception be invoked, there are also many tenders on a daily basis even already being posted on our BuySellGCA that are being competed competitively, so are being tendered competitively and open for the public to bid on. All right. And the next slide here that I'm showing is some information that can be found on the Canadian Border Services site. And the reason why we're putting this up and just drawing your attention to Customs Notice 20-08 or -08 is because we have received a number of inquiries from suppliers just wanting to know a bit of information about, how does it work in regards to customs clearance of goods if I'm bringing in PPE, so personal protective equipment, in order to sell, whether it's to the government of Canada or through other sectors as well. This is the customs notice that will be of interest to you to take a look into. And all this information can be found on the CBSA website. All right. It is important to note, especially for the suppliers that have responded to the COVID-19 request for information or that call out that I mentioned, that it is essential for you to remember that without an actual signed contract in place, there's no mechanism for payment by the government of Canada. So unless we've already reached an agreement and awarded you with the contract, please do not see it as that, oh, just because I do have the ability to provide PPE or any of the products and services listed on the government website that is required, that I should just bring it in right away and expect that it would be something that the government of Canada will buy. So under no circumstances should a supplier be encouraged to begin any work or supply any goods until a formal agreement is in place. So speaking of payment, typically the payment terms that the government uses is about net 30 days following the receipt of all the goods and the invoice, or when there's confirmation that work has been completed. In regards to COVID-19 related products and services, we have seen, or even other tenders, we have seen other payment terms being built into the solicitation, such as milestone payments or advance payments. So we don't want to be remiss by not mentioning those. However, typically it is net 30 days. For any payment provisions, we highly encourage for you to take a look at the solicitation in itself, because each solicitation is unique in its own provisions and terms and conditions. So it is important for you to know ahead of time what it is that is stipulated and what you're agreeing to and held accountable to. All right, so before I actually do the live demo, I will remind everyone that BuySellGCA, this website, is the authoritative source for the government, for any government procurement information. It's a huge repository of information. It almost works like a Google search engine where you can get to the information through different ways, and then it's up to the end user to use the different filtering mechanisms to funnel it down to the information that you need. This is one of the online resources that will be of great importance to help you. It has links to a wide variety of information sources that can be useful for your company as it gathers data on what the government buys, who's been successful in selling to the government in the past. So it's important for you to become familiar with the site and visit it often. As with any tool, the more you use it, the higher the level of proficiency that you will gain. But hopefully you will find that this will be really good access to information, intel, if you will, that will help you in your business decisions. I'm always a proponent in making the tool work for you, just because when you reference the information or a given requirement, you don't really feel that it determines that you're a perfect fit to be a direct vendor to the government of Canada. Doesn't mean that information can't be used as market research or even intelligence to see or identify where you might fit in the whole supply chain. Like if you look at contract history to take a look at action within the commodity that your company falls under, and you see some of the companies that those contracts were awarded to, those could be your potential clients as well, and you could potentially pitch or create a subcontracting environment as well. So I'm always a proponent in making sure that you make the tools work for you and you leverage the information to help you excel in whatever your aspirations are. All right, next slide reminds me to engage our support team so that I can share the screen and launch a live demonstration of the website for you. It's really a fancy way of saying that I'm just going to click over to my browser to bring you to the BuySellGCA tab. Your screen may look different by the time I've clicked this already. Don't worry, you did not press anything wrong or break anything. Some of you, depending on the interface or the platform that you're using, you may or may not still see my face in the corner. I didn't actually learn the whole functionality of it from the tech support, but as long as you can right now see BuySellGCA on your screen with the big maple leaf, you are on the correct screen. All right, so once again, as I mentioned, this is a website that you want to bookmark because this is a great repository of information that is kept fluid, is updated daily, and has a lot of information that would be in your interest to have a lens on in order for you to explore opportunities in selling your goods or service to the government of Canada. So I'd like to draw your attention to this blue bar right here. I'll try to move my cursor a little bit slow so you can catch up to where I am. If you hover over the For Businesses tab or any of these tabs right here listed in white text in this blue bar, you'll find other follow-up information to different topics that would be of your interest. And as I mentioned before, sometimes you'll see a bit of duplication of information in other tabs as well. We're just providing you with different ways to get to the information that you need. As promised earlier in my presentation, I will show you exactly where to go to register as a supplier of the government of Canada, or to at least explore what kind of databases that you should consider registering yourself under so that you essentially increase visibility of your company and your company's capabilities to the government of Canada. A lot of people, when they think of the government of Canada, if they think of the government of Canada as a potential client at all, just look at it as one potential client. However, in reality, we are comprised of over 100 departments and agencies, which means that you're actually looking at potentially over 100 clients. So it's in your best interest to, one, register in the supplier information index so that we know of your existence, and take a look at what other databases would be beneficial for you to also register under. It's also important to note that once you do register under the main one, which is the SRI, if you update any information for your business profile, it will then also update all the other databases. So again, if you want to make it a habit to go in and further optimize as you gain higher level of proficiency in setting up your profile, that would be great. And I keep saying setting up your profile, optimization, things like that. What I would like you to remember from this session upon completion of your registration is something called GSIN, G-S-I-N, Goods and Services International Code, or Commodity Code in layman's term. Those are some of the codes that you would like to familiarize yourself with, specifically the ones that will represent your company's capabilities, your commodity, and codes or commodities that may be of interest for your company to keep a lens on, because those are the codes that you will like to bank or save under your profile, if you will, so that you can make this tool work for you in, one, notifying you when there's any action under that commodity, or at least familiarize with the codes that you can use to search for opportunities. Now, on that note, I've said a lot, but I will also draw your attention to this search bar. And this search bar almost acts like a Google search engine, where you can use plain language and just use certain keywords. Like you see right here, I've had some previous searches saved, mask or disinfectant, and click search. And that in itself will also produce notices for you to look at. It's important to note that I've already mentioned some benefits in registering as a supplier to the government of Canada. However, I want to emphasize that even without registering, you can access any of these notices or information on BuySellGCA. It is not limited to whether or not you are registered. All right. Now, let's say if you wanted to come onto this website to take a look at what tenders are active, whether for the day, for the week, or even contract history, where would you go? You can either click on the different icons available here. You can do a search, as I mentioned, with the search bar, or you can just click right here where it says Access Government of Canada Tenders for free and without registering by using this function. So let's say if I click into it, you'll see that it brings you to a page that almost mirrors what you saw in the main page that provides you with different avenues or channels through these icons to take a look at tenders or any other notices. Let's say if we were to look at active or new today, then it would show you what's currently being tendered for the Government of Canada or what's being posted under active that's new today. Because this is a live website that's updated daily, I'd like to also note that if you were to check on a weekend or let's say a statutory holiday, if you click on new today, it may show 0. It doesn't mean that there's no active tenders that are being published right now or being solicited by the Government of Canada. It just simply means that there was nothing uploaded that day. So let's say I wanted to search for maybe some goods notices. I would click here under goods, and you'll see that it will produce a search result of, wow, plus 23,000 notices. Again, not going to stop you from going through all the notices if that's something that is of your interest, but I would encourage you to take a look at these gray boxes right over here on your left-hand side of the screen. These are some of the filters that are available to you in order for you to dial down from 23 plus notices to whatever it is that you want to take a look at. So for example, if I was putting myself in your position and let's say I'm just curious about what's active right now, what notices have been posted, what tenders are active right now, I would use that active filter and it would effectively narrow the 23,000+ notices down to 290 for me. And then I can comb through the 290 to see which ones are of interest to me. Or again, I can go here on the left-hand side using these gray boxes and use the different filtering mechanisms to keep narrowing down the information. I could narrow it down by, let's say, region of delivery, so on and so forth. Now, I'm going to go back to the main page and also teach you different ways of getting to the information that you want. Let's say that you gain a bit more proficiency and you want to search by code because you know exactly what disinfectant or facial cloth masks fall under when it comes to goods and services. Then you can search by GSIN code. And if you don't know that code, then you can click onto Browse GSIN codes and enter with plain language or text to get down to, oh, well, if I wanted to find out what trucks is under, what code would I use? That would be a good way of getting to that. Or, as I mentioned to you before, let's just do a plain search with the keyword. So let's say if I search under using the word mask, 403 notices right here are showing as active when I use the keyword mask. Does that mean that there are 403 tenders? Possibly. It's likely that there's some tenders embedded in there. There's also some award notices or some canceled notices, expired notices. If right now what I'm looking for are active ones, then that's probably going to be a good way for me to filter or narrow down the information. So I can click on active, for example, and that takes it from 290 to 82 notices. But before I do that, I'm actually not going to press anything yet because I do already notice that out of the 403, there are already some active tender notices that I'm interested in. What I'm going to do is instead of narrowing it down further to specific notices, I am going to click on this email notification icon. You see this black envelope with the @ sign on it. I am going to click on that. What that does, it will open up another window or a box for you to create some notifications. This is a tip that I would like for you to keep in mind because you may not just be searching under one commodity, you may be searching under multiple commodities. So what you can do is, as I mentioned to you earlier, about me being a proponent of making the tool work for you, this is a clear example. You can actually create notices for BuySellGCA to notify you, send you email notifications right into your inbox when there's any action per se under that commodity, when there's anything related to masks that is published onto this tendering site. And the reason why I wanted to open this up to show you and mention about multiple commodities or multiple search results is that you are able to set up the notification and title it as you wish. So if you have different streams you want somebody on your team specifically to be looking at PPE, and then you want somebody else looking at something else that has to do with services that you provide, you can title the different notifications differently so that when it hits your inbox, you do with it what you will. what you will. So you receive the information, doesn't mean that you have to act on it and bid right away, but at least you would have gained awareness, and then you can action the information how you see most fit. It's important to note that when trade agreements apply, usually tender notices are posted between 15 to 40 days. Usually it's the latter. In regards to tenders related to COVID-19, because of the quick turnaround that's needed, and also because of the national security exception being invoked, that sometimes you will find that it doesn't fall under that period, or tenders may not be posted for as long as 15 days or even 40 days. So there's a quick turnaround. So for those ones specifically, if those are the ones that you're interested in, then I would highly advise that if you set notifications for it and you receive it, to please check it promptly, because the likelihood of something closing at least maybe a week before or after you receive the notification is highly likely. So you want to make sure that you don't miss that opportunity. All right. Returning back to the main BuySellGCA website, as I mentioned to you before, it's a great repository of information that you can use in your market research or gaining more intel, and how you are strategic or tactful in positioning yourself or where you belong in the supply chain. So you'll see right here that I'm hovering under different tabs here, and it gives you an idea of the type of information that you have available to you. Under the For Businesses tab, I'd like to call your attention right here under Contacts for Businesses, because again, there's a lot of information that we're sharing with you right now, and there's a lot more. So if you have any questions, that's only normal. Please contact our office if you would like to schedule any follow-up one-on-one sessions, or if you would like us to set up a call with you and answer any questions that you may have either via email or phone. Under Finding Opportunities, I'd also like to call your attention under this resource here, which says Other Government Tender Sites. This is a good link for you to click on, because if you're offering any goods or services related to COVID-19, or any of your generic products or services, sometimes if you're exploring an opportunity in selling to the government of Canada, then perhaps other levels of government may be of interest to you in regards to adding them to your ideal client profile. And this is where you can find the different procurement gateways or landing pages for each one of those levels of government, whether it's federal, provincial, or territorial. All right, so I'm a little bit cognizant of the time, because I do know that we have a great deal of information to share still. So I'm going to try to launch back to the presentation right now, so we can finish off the last bit of the presentation, and then hopefully gain a little bit of time for questions and answers. We do already know from the CGLCC team that there's an overwhelming, and it's a positive thing, uptake in this session and all of their other sessions. So we highly likely will not get to all your questions. However, we want to answer them. So please feel free to contact our office, or even contact CGLCC and let them know if you have any questions. They will definitely forward you to us. And also you can request the post-session notes from them as well. So as I mentioned to you before, at BuySellGCA, there are different ways for you to create notifications so that you're notified about all the latest procurement related news, tenders, and website updates. So please feel free to go in and navigate and set notifications as you see fit. But as of today, I'd like to share with you one of the new announcements that came live today. The Government of Canada launched a new web hub, to bring together available resources for organizations buying and or selling personal protective equipment. So as organizations, as we return to normalcy, if you will, and reopen for business, we need to be reliable, or we need reliable information on how to buy and sell the necessary supplies required to keep everyone safe. So this supply hub connects Canadian organizations from coast to coast to coast with federal, provincial, territorial, and other resources and information about PPE. I highly encourage for you to take a look at that. You can find that on our main PSPC webpage. So if you do a simple Google search of PSPC, the first search result will get you to our main page. You'll also see through that portal PPE that we have already bought, what we have received, if that's of interest to you in regards to anything related to COVID-19. Another source of information that I would also like to share with you is that not only during this pandemic, but also even outside of that, we are moving towards being able to receive electronic bid submissions. So in addition to the traditional courier, mail, in-person delivery, or fax, And how we go about doing that is we've also engaged with Canada Post ePost Connect online service. So if you're not familiar with that and you have a few minutes, I also highly encourage you to take a look at the Canada Post site and explore it, because that would be a good tool for you to familiarize yourself with if you would like to submit bids in response to government tenders. And then lastly, I just wanted to remind you that, as I mentioned to you before, when you do look at the Government of Canada as a potential client, you're actually looking at a potential of over 100 departments and agencies as your client. So it's good for you to stay connected with departments and agencies, familiarize yourself with some programs and initiatives that are currently underway or will be implemented, so that you can use that information and leverage it into your business decisions, promote your businesses. You can also do a simple Google search with the capital letters GEDS, which stands for Government Electronic Directory Service. That will get you to essentially like a virtual phone book to government departments and agencies. And that will be a good reference point if you wanted to contact any departments. All right. Now, in regards to finding government support or resources related to COVID-19, this slide can go on forever, but these are just some types of the programs that you can look into. And again, if you're a note taker, go ahead and take notes, or if you want to take a screen cap, or we'll do you one better, and we will provide, the extensive post-session notes to CGLCC for them to distribute to you. So feel free to contact them and let them know that you attended this session and you would like to get the follow-up information. A program that I would like to call your attention to are ones that are offered by Innovative Solutions Canada, especially if you are a manufacturer looking to retool in order to support Canada's response to COVID-19, and also a program called IDEAS. It's by the Department of National Defense, and is a very unprecedented and very cool program. IDEA stands for Innovation for Defense Excellence and Security. It's a program that's open to all Canadian innovators. They're essentially publishing all of their problem statements in the form of challenges and inviting you to the table to help solve them. So that's a really cool one. And these are only a few of the many that you can look into. As I mentioned to you earlier before, there's a lot of information download today just in this half an hour or 45 minutes slot. So we don't expect you to memorize it or know it. We've already left you with a lot of calls to actions. Hopefully the post-session notes will help. And if not, then feel free to contact our office. You can see here that you can contact us via web. There's a web form where you can request for us to contact you. You can email us, or you can call our national info line as well. Well, at this time, I've already overrun by a couple of minutes, so I hope that our CGLCC team are still okay with supporting our Q&A session. For perhaps we can take a couple of questions, if that's okay with you, Carlos. I will see silence as your agreement and no opposition. I will open up the Q&A mode, and I will take a look at some of the questions here. All right, and I see here that there's a few questions that kind of touch on similar topics, so I'm going to paraphrase some of them. Some of them are asking about priority focus group, minority suppliers, or even Indigenous or Aboriginal businesses, asking if there are certain databases or certain tenders that are reserved or specifically allocated for them to bid on. And the answer would be yes to all of the above. I would start off first by registering under your SRI, and under the For Businesses tab that I showed you in BuySellGCA when I mentioned other databases is where you'll find different things like Aboriginal Business Directory and things like that, and procurement set-asides for Aboriginal businesses such as that, or any priority focus groups that any programs and initiatives apply to. That's where you'll find the information. And if you're having follow-up questions in regards to that, feel free to contact the AHSME offices as well. We have 6 offices all throughout Canada, and because it's such a digital world, it doesn't really matter which office you contact. We'll do our best to answer your inquiry. All right. And then the next question is, can a supplier list themselves under different GSIN codes? Absolutely, which is exactly what I meant by, for the commodity codes, not only grab the ones that represent your company's capabilities or your supply capabilities, but also grab the ones that are of interest to you, even if it's not something that you supply. You can have codes that represent food and services related to food, equipment related to food if you're in the food industry. But if you also wanted to have a lens on like consultation services or facial coverings during COVID-19, you can grab all those codes. Again, make the tool work for you. It's supposed to allow for the functions that are built in to be activated so that it helps make your life easier. All right, so far those are the questions I see that I'm able to get to. Thank you very much for participating in today's session. I know it's a little bit difficult, being able to see each other, but still have a little bit of a limited form of engagement versus in person. But I do want to emphasize and congratulate the tremendous efforts by CGLCC, for already pivoting and moving this information session or this digital summit 5-day event to this platform because it's a great way for connecting us, even if there are certain limitations right now. So thank you very much. Thank you for participating in this session. Hopefully we helped you learn more information on the federal procurement process, and we've planted enough seeds for you to look into potentially becoming a direct vendor to the Government of Canada. Take care.